looking at a chart right now of the fifth set in Roger Federer's tennis match. And actually, I could start with the end of the fourth set with the tiebreaker. And I wanted to talk about something that I call 2ItTennis. For those of you that play this game at a high level, you know that in the beginning, strokes, very important. But at the highest level, you got to also have the spirit of the game and understand the spirit of the game. And to understand the spirit of the game is to understand that tennis gets played with what I call 2-point games and 2-game matches. When Roger played that fourth set tiebreaker, he started off the first point serving, and he gets to serve the second point. Now that's a 2-point game. There's a first point and a second point. Roger won the first one, Andy serves, Roger won the second one. Then the next 2-point game, Andy got to serve the first point, Roger served the second point, Andy won the first point, Roger won the second point. And so it's 2-all. Now in the third 2-point game, Roger serves the first point and wins it. Andy serves the second point and Roger wins it. And so he wins the third 2-point game. Now in the fourth 2-point game, Andy serves the first point, Roger serves the second point, Roger wins both of them and wins another 2-point game. Now he's won two 2-point games in a row. And then Roger serves the first point and wins that game. Now, what you're used to hearing in commentary is, mini breaks and break points and deuce points and add points. But I like to think of tennis as a 2-point game. And if you heard what I just said, I explained the 2-point game, for example, in a tiebreaker, as having Roger serving the first point, Andy serving the second point. So in the first 2-point game, Roger gets to serve the first point. Now in the next 2-point game, Andy gets to serve the first point. And then the next 2-point game, Roger gets to serve the first point. So we're taking turns serving the first point of the 2-point game. But we normally only associate in a tiebreaker with, he's serving 2 points. Now he's obviously starting on, the add side, and then the second point gets served on the deuce side, and that's what you're accustomed to hearing. But I like to think of it as, the tiebreaker is set up in a fair way. In other words, you get to serve the first point, I get to serve the second point, and in the next one, I get to serve the first point, and you get to serve the second point. So we're taking turns in terms of like who is serving the first point of the 2-point game. Now, for an entire match, if you play 2-point games, the whole match, 100% of the time, then you're always playing first points and you're always playing second points. You're not playing third points, fourth points, fifth points, sixth points. You're not playing 15s, 40s, deuces. You're just playing 2-point games the whole time. Now in the fifth set, Roger, after winning that tiebreaker with, 3 2-point games and 4 first points, he won a lot of first points. But now we start the fifth set. Andy's serving. And in the first 2-point game, Andy won the first point and Roger won the second point. So they split the 2-point game. In the next 2-point game, Roger won the first point, Andy won the second point, so we split the 2-point game again. But this time Roger, having won the first point, had a chance to win that second point, and he could have won a 2-point game, but he didn't. And then Andy wins the first point, the second point, and ends up winning the third 2-point game, so he wins the game. It only takes one 2-point game to win the game. Now, not 2 points in a row, but 2-point game. So anyhow, in the next game, Roger's serving, and Roger wins the first point, Andy wins the second point. So they split the 2-point game. Andy won the first point, Roger won the second point, split the 2-point game again. Andy won the first point again, and wins the second point, converting that first point by winning the second point into a 2-point game, and ends up breaking. So Andy wins that second game. Now in the next game, Andy's serving, and he wins the first 2-point game, and he wins the second 2-point game. So he wins 2 2-point games in a row. So now Andy's won 3 2-point games in a row. Now that's a whole lot of momentum. Now, somebody who doesn't know 2-point game tennis doesn't really think of that as 2-point games. They think of it as like, well, he won 6 points in a row. But I like to think of it as more than just like taking 1 point at a time, which is obviously what happens in a 2-point game, but doing it with a purpose, you know, like hopefully Roger sits down at the end of 3 games and says to himself, wow, you know, I only won 2 first points. Now let's get out there in the next 2 games and do a little better and win some first points, so that I'm not just playing get it back tennis, but playing by winning the first point, setting it up to be able to say, get another one, win the second point, and win a 2-point game. So Andy is receiving, and Roger's serving. And Roger serves the first point, Andy wins it. Roger wins the second point, so they split the first 2-point game. Again, Andy won the first point, Roger won the second, split the second 2-point game. And then in the third 2-point game, Roger wins the first point, Andy wins the second point, split the 2-point game. And in the fourth one, Roger gets on board, you know, after 4 games in the match by winning the 2-point game. So he won it in the fourth 2-point game to hold serve. But then Andy serves, and he wins the first 2-point game, and he wins the second 2-point game, and now Andy's ahead 4-1. So now we sit down again. And, you know, Roger has to be able to think, you know, wow, you know, I'm down 1-4. But if I can win these 2 games right here, I can do something about it, you know, create some momentum for myself. But, you know, you got to win 2 games in a row when you stand up to be able to sit down the next time and say you created some momentum. Well, Roger did win his serve. He won the first 2-point game, and he won the second 2-point game. And then Andy's serving, you know, at 4-2, and he wins the first 2-point game, which has already given him a 30-love lead. And then Roger won the first point, but didn't convert it, which he needed to do, because if Andy's already won a 2-point game, Roger basically has to win the next 2-point game right back. Andy won the second point, and then he wins the first point. And so Andy holds serve, and he's ahead 5-2. So now we stand back up, Roger's serving. Andy wins the first 2-point game. Roger wins the first point of the second 2-point game. Andy wins the second point, so they split the second 2-point game. Roger again won the first point, but Andy won the second point. And because he won the first 2-point game and didn't give up any first points in the next 2, set and match. Well, that's 2-point game tennis. You know, to sum it up in a nutshell, if you can do this 100% of the time, you will find yourself playing your most spiritual tennis and mastering the spirit. You know, not just mastering strokes, but understanding that results are important, you know, not just appearance. And, you know, it's all about the 2-point game and the 2-game matches. And when I sit down after 2 games, I reflect on the past, not for long, but real quickly just assess, you know, like, am I winning second points, or am I winning first points? Am I winning 2-point games or not winning 2-point games? You know, when I'm serving to the first point side, you know, for strategy, you know, am I hitting like 70% of the time slices to different locations? Because to me that's the best tactic on the first point side. And on the second point side, you know, if you're a left-hander, serving slices. If you're a right-hander, hitting kick serves. Just like on the first point side, if you were a left-hander, you know, hitting a lot more kick serves on the first point side. And then moving it around to different locations. You know, I think these are putting the balls into the boxes with an angle trajectory that obviously help you set up the point. And obviously the first move of a 2-shot combination, you know, is what sets up the second shot. So again, there's, you know, 2-point game tennis, 2-game matches, you know, every single time you sit down, you just finish 2 of them, you stand back up, you play another 2 of them, you play 2-game matches like there is no other. You play 2-point games like there is no other. And when it comes to setting up the point, Always think two-shot combinations. I mean, you're not just hitting a shot. You're not just stroking. You're going out there and it's like, I'm doing this to do this. And that's how you flow. And obviously to be able to flow is to be able to grow. So if you can do this 100% of the time, watch the improvement that takes place in your game. Have a great day.